In 1970, a girl approaches a car and travels peacefully while someone follow her. She listens to music and emotions distracts her, which makes her stop for a moment. Her biggest mistake so far, as a man from a white van approaches and it costs her life. Now the movie shifts to 1975, where we meet Annie, a passionate rider who owns a horse named Rebel. However, she often falls off and injures herself. Back at home, we meet her sister Margaret, as well as their mother Helen. Margaret shows Annie how to shave her legs and cuts her a little, which isn't good. Their father, William, talks about business with a friend, while Margaret brags about herself. Annie interrupts to exaggerate a story about almost being bitten by a rattlesnake. Helen is disappointed by this behavior, feeling it has humiliated her father that evening. Now the scene shows a young girl heading out for the night, while the white van finds a new victim. Back at the happy family, we see Annie's younger brother, Daniel. They are heading to church, and their mother has picked out a dress for the girls to wear, while Daniel pretends to be a cowboy. At church, Annie glances at a boy she likes, and her friend Patty supports her. But while on their way home, they stop to get gas, and someone finds a place to rest. He seems nice, so he follows them home. Back at home, Annie and Daniel are cleaning the barn, and the horse nearly kicks him. She advises him to never dart behind Rebel, as he might hit him next time. That night, a girl from a club steps outside to light a cigarette, making her the next victim. The next day, while at school, Mark joins a new class with Annie. On the way home, something strange happens, and she hears a sound nearby. Later, the sound leads her to stand in front of her house where the van is parked. She rushes to tell her mother, who is too busy with Margaret and doesn't pay attention, thinking Annie is exaggerating another story from her imagination. But things don't get better, as the next day she spots the van again when Mark approaches her at school. They bond over rock music, a shared interest. After that, they head home, and this time the van comes closer, prompting Patty to play the hero by throwing rocks in its direction, scaring it off. They continue on, and when they get home, Annie notices the van parked in front of her door. Her breathing quickens with fear as she spots a large man walking toward her. She stumbles back, losing control, and he offers her a hand after she falls, realizing it's a different van. She enters her room and finds her brother holding a gun. He wants to learn how to shoot, and this time Annie helps him. Now we switch to a girl who, after swimming, goes to her room where the man from the white van joins her, capturing another victim. That night, Annie is enjoying some music, but not her eyes, as she sees a glimpse of the van near the house. Then she hears her brother going down to open the door, thinking it's their father coming home from work, and he's right this time. The next day, their parents prepare for a date while the kids stay home. However, after they leave, Margaret seizes the opportunity to meet up with a guy, while Annie spends time with her brother, and the white van is waiting for them. They quickly run inside, and while Annie watches from the window, Daniel takes the gun outside, ready to play with fire. Annie takes the gun, and after a few shots, the van retreats. They spend the whole night with the gun, which isn't exciting until their sister comes home, followed by their parents. Daniel explains the whole situation, during which Margaret gets a 2-week ban from being out, and she complains that her sister is just making it all up. The white van finds a new victim, and for the first time we see 2 men involved, a father and a son. Annie is now cautious, always checking the doors, looking for a new lock during dinner, where Margaret suggests they go to watch a movie. But Annie is already stressed. Every sound or movement sends her into a self-defense obsession, to which her father offers comfort by showing her the new lock on the door. Deciding to clear her head, she goes to watch a movie with her friend. After a while, they decide to grab something from the stand, and Mark scares them with a friend, apologizing, before they leave together to get food. Joanna joins them and invites them to a Halloween party at her place. Patty tries to convince Annie to go to the party and succeeds by mentioning that Mark will be there. They agree to come home before dark because the van scares them. Annie prepares a cowboy outfit for Halloween and wants to wear lipstick for the first time, while Margaret offers to help her. Together with Patty, they head to the party on horseback, and while there, Annie sees Mark, who is wearing a matching cowboy outfit. They step aside to talk, but as the night progresses and time passes, Mark invites her to swim before she leaves, prompting her to decide with a further step. After that, they get their ride, and on the way, the van welcomes them, following them until they separate. Annie falls from her horse and continues on foot through the dark night with an injured leg. She finds a perfect spot to hide while the van lurks around. A man exits the van and plays music while searching for her. As he moves around, she shifts, ultimately positioning herself under the van he enters as it drives away. However, as it passes, it grazes her, and she covers her arm and moves on. In the meantime, Patty turns her phone to get someone at home, but the line is busy. During this time, Annie reaches her horse, who stands still and refuses to move. At that moment, a man appears, grabbing her and throwing her to the ground to bind her and take her away, but Rebel has something to say about that. Annie uses the moment to free herself and distance herself as much as possible, but her speed doesn't favor her since he catches up and pulls the rope, choking her. She loses consciousness, only to be found inside the same van that has been hunting her for a while. With her kung fu moves, she breaks the door and manages to escape, saving herself from him once again. Annie is hopping around a backyard, happy to see her house in sight. At the front door, she knocks, but no one answers as someone is busy. After a couple of screams, Margaret remembers she doesn't live alone in the house and opens the door as a man shakes it, having come uninvited. They lock the door and go upstairs to a room where they aren't safe either, as they briefly block the door. Annie opens a window for Margaret, who squeezes through, but then Annie follows her, with her legs getting stuck as the man grabs her, and her sister helps, resulting in Margaret falling off the roof. Annie joins her, and they go to his van while Patty calls the police. Annie takes a quick drive and stops to turn around where the man grabs Margaret, but Annie manages to shake him off. However, he now faces them, and without thinking, Annie runs him over. A police officer soon joins them, and while he checks, the man has already disappeared, as it often happens in these kinds of movies. A month later, we see a reinforced security system as Mark and Kyle enter their girlfriend's house, enjoying a family dinner. Meanwhile, news circulates about a serial killer as several bodies have been found while the killer remains at large.